certainly want to honor Brother Knox, the owner of Knox Funeral Home, for having us here this evening. Coming in this order will be the Litany for the Dead, Brother Orlando Evans, Ada Lambda Chapter, followed by words of tribute, Brother Winfred Harris, his Alpha Line brother from the Alpha Phi Chapter.
O Father of light and giver of light, look with favor upon thy creatures here assembled.
And grant us thy blessing.
O thou who hast led man through the ages of his existence upon the earth of thy spirit.
Grant us thy continued guidance.
Thou who does generate love and goodness in heart and the desire for fellowship, one with the other in life's living.
Increase thy spirit in us.
Thou who hast called thy brother from his tasks to the reward of noble thoughts and deeds.
Deepen our memory of him.
Thou who art the light of the new heaven, the new earth, the new Jerusalem, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and end of all creation.
Grant a final resting place with thee to all whom thou hast called, and finally ourselves. Amen.
Good evening, brother.
Good evening.
I am experiencing mixed emotions here. The mixture comes from the fact that my brother Charles Stinson is gone, and one or two of us who were on that line are still here. But that's the providence of God. And I'm just thankful to be here.
Amen. Amen.
I knew Charles Stinson back in the old days at David T. Howard High School. Now, David T. Howard High School has undergone some transition in recent times. But first, let me excuse me while I give you a little background. I started school at David T. Howard, and in those days, students would leave junior high and go to Booker Washington Senior High School. But it turns out that I was in the last class of David T. Howard Elementary and Junior High. That year, David T. Howard became a senior high school. And so there were students coming from the South Atlanta region where Charles Stinson lived, from all over Atlanta. So it turns out that Charles and I were classmates. We were put in the same class in senior high school. I didn't know him at the time. As time went on, I began to know him because Charles was an all-around athlete. He became famous basically in football. First year in senior high school, Brother Stinson made the first team. And believe me now, David T. Howard had some powerful brothers on the team at that time. There were many of them returning from World War II, coming back getting vacation. But Charles Stinson made it. He was a good student. We took several classes together. And over time, in senior high, we became good friends. Not knowing that one day we would be fraternity brothers. In fact, it wasn't even clear for me what a fraternity was. I mean, I knew the definition of the term, but what that meant was something else. But it winds out that, to use the vernacular, a whole lot of us went to Clark College. And of the brothers who went to Clark College, about 6 of us pledged Alpha. That year, Alpha Phi Chapter at Clark had 12 initiates. 10 of them were from David T. Howard High School.
Wow.
We formed a tight union, and in the that was in the spring of 1951, and in the fall of 1952, we were initiated into Alpha Phi Chapter. That was one hell of a day. One day we were really glad and happy that took place. We formed a union. Charles Stinson and 5 other brothers and I became inseparable during the entire 4 years that we were at Clark College. The chapter at Clark College grew and benefited tremendously by our joining and by the membership of some other brothers. As a matter of fact, the Pledge Club at Alpha Phi was the largest at Clark College. Over time, the 6 of us from David T. Howard, from David T. Howard formed an inseparable union. We went on in 1952, and I can remember it because of Pearl Harbor. It was December 7th, 1952, that we were initiated into Alpha Phi. From that point on, it's pretty much history. Charles was a dynamic brother. He was kind of the leader of the pack, if you will. He was a football star. And I do emphasize star because he was quite talented at football. There was another couple of brothers who were on the team and sort of followed Charles's footsteps. But in the end, before we graduated, Charles was a fortunate guy. He married a beautiful young lady who was a Spelman at the time by the name of Evelyn Davis. And I think the record that you have read of Charles gives the results of having 3 sons, one of whom is a minister in the United Methodist Church. Charles went on to star in a couple of sports, and he became really a representative of Alpha Phi Chapter because he was so well known and he had distinguished himself at Clark College as a star athlete and a star student. He was kind of an unusual brother. We decided, those of us who were from Atlanta especially, that within Alpha Phi, we would kind of have a little group unto ourselves. And Al Knox, you're old enough to know this. In those days, the SIAC basketball tournament was held every year at Tuskegee. And one of the things that we did at Alpha Phi, headed by Charles Stinson, is that we got all of the brothers together every year, and we went down to Tuskegee to the basketball tournament. And if you're talking, brothers, about something happening back in the 1950s, I could cite you some real incidents of racism. I remember one night we were coming back from Tuskegee, just to mention one. And the lady took our change and threw it on the ground. Of course, that was in the early 1950s. And like young brothers who wanted to see another day, we stooped down and picked that money up. All in all, Charles was a great guy. In 1955, when we graduated, the Korean War was at its peak. And a lot of brothers, not only from Alpha Phi, but all over the University Center, joined and were drafted into the military. So it was not until around 1960 that brothers began to come back to the city of Atlanta. Charles and I joined Ada Lambda in about 1960, somewhere. And my membership in Ada Lambda has been pretty consistent over the years, except for 8 or 10 years when I was living in another city. But from the time we joined, Charles and I, Charles lived in Atlanta, his membership extended from about 1960 until his death a few days ago. I'm going to miss my brother tremendously. He's a great brother, he's a great man, and he's a good friend. And I solicit your prayers and hope that God will direct him to where he is to spend eternity.
All right. Amen.